A Colossus is being disassembled. 350 men are in action. Every detail has to be controlled, because what looks like a scratch can have serious consequences.
For some it may only be a scratch, but for us it's serious structural damage.
The seats of the noble first class come out. In the economy class, every seat is removed and reupholstered.
Well, that's a lot of work.
This reveals a mile-long network of cables. There's a separate hangar for the engine check. This engine is broken.
Yes, there's a hole here. Yeah, blown and cracked.
Even the tank is inspected, from the inside, not harmless.
If I climb in here, I have to remember the way I did it, because I have to climb out again in reverse.
Only 5 weeks to take the plane apart completely, and then reassemble it with a new interior. This long-haul aircraft has barely unloaded passengers from Bangkok. Now it goes to the technical headquarters in Hamburg for a checkup. First, the Colossus has to go into the hangar, a job for Kai-Uwe Hasse.
There are a lot of guides down here to make sure that you don't collide with anything, because there's a lot of stuff around, and it's always difficult to tell where the end of the plane is, and we don't want to cause a crash. Okay, all clear.
210 feet span, 210 feet in length. For 15 years, Kai-Uwe Hasse has been parking such giants in reverse almost weekly, and meanwhile, his speed is pretty impressive.
You have to move slightly to the right.
10 men are busy parking the plane. Even the smallest bump can cost millions with this highly sensitive giant.
The plane can stay there. We can connect it this way.
Every 5 years, the plane is checked. Every 10 years, there's an all-round renewal, like this time. Every minute a plane spends on the ground costs the airline money. That's why the crew starts immediately. They mark every part with stickers. Then the plane is taken apart. Every single screw, every cover has to be checked. 350 men work in shifts, almost 24 hours a day for 5 weeks. No lift can manage this giant alone. 3 hydraulic lifters share the 130 tons total weight.
Now the angle's good.
The plane now hangs absolutely horizontally. The process continues just like for a car. For a thorough inspection, the machine must be raised 20 feet into the air, and it will spend the next 5 weeks in this position. Now, 25 work platforms are placed at different heights around the plane.
What?
So you have better access to the huge plane, and you can work in several places at the same time. Two days later, surface check. Oliver Poller and his colleagues painstakingly scan every inch of the outer skin, because even inconspicuous damage to the plane can cause serious problems.
What we see here now is a small black dot from a lightning bolt above the fuselage. Now, we have to be very careful what we do. It may only seem like a scratch, but for us, this is serious structural damage.
Many covers have already been removed, and work continues under the shell. No one has checked here for 5 years. Oliver is looking for the slightest deformations or signs of wear.
Basically, we look at everything. If we don't do that, something will get overlooked. You divide the plane into smaller areas so that nothing can get missed.
In commercial aircraft, the muzzle can be easily folded up. Below is an important instrument, the weather radar.
The panel here in front moves, then scans the sky and gives the pilot an indication of whether he has to fly around the weather or just through it.
What looks like a towel rail is also an indispensable tool.
The runway emits radio signals and the antenna picks them up, so that the pilot knows if his landing approach is the right one.
Then it's off to the plane and into first class, where Hollywood stars and professional athletes usually take their seats. But today, it's all about the luxury recliners. The whole first class comes out. While there are 40 passengers in 215 square feet in the economy class, here there are only 8.
At the front there were only these screws, right? I've got them loose now.
Nobody has looked under this seat for 5 years. Mechanic banned Rosick as treasure hunter.
I once found €10. It's not really worth it, and sometimes it's a bit disgusting. All kinds of things fall under the seat here. That's why all the dirt is here too. The dirt is everywhere where the cleaning crew can't get their hands on it.
Anyone who has flown from Frankfurt to Los Angeles on this seat has paid well over €10,000. Now, the noble seat goes into the garbage. The first class is being completely removed from the plane, because the demand for the expensive luxury recliners is falling.
At some point, everything becomes obsolete and has to be made again. If you pay a fortune, you want high-quality monitors, for example. Today, you have better monitors in economy class. That's all outdated. It all has to be replaced.
These business class seats also have to go. The entire front half of the cabin will turn into a new business class. Day 9. Meanwhile, the galleys and toilets are being enlarged. The cabin is empty. All furniture is screwed into these standard rails. They have to be scrubbed thoroughly after 5 years. A general overhaul also includes the compartments above the seats. Here, there are the reading lights, ventilation and oxygen masks. And now, an indefinable greyish-brown layer of dirt as well.
Dirt, dust from flight operations also forms condensation. This will no longer pass the test in the workshop, and it will then be replaced accordingly.
9,000 flights and 67,000 hours in the air are leaving their mark. Day 17. The Airbus has now been reduced to a shell. The cabin floor is disassembled. The things that you normally don't see now come to the fore, like those tanks where everything is collected and what passes through the bathroom. In the cabin, there are new chairs and TV screens. That means hundreds of new cables. Before that, the old ones have to be taken out.
This cable goes through the whole plane. I don't know exactly where, so I'm just following it now.
More than 30 miles of cables run through the cabin. Daniel doesn't know the exact length of this one, nor his endpoint. A single cable can keep you busy the whole shift.
It's not complicated, just the length. Can be a good 100 feet long and very well secured.
For 3 hours now, Daniel has been searching for the end of the cable, and he likes it.
Sometimes you put them in, sometimes you take them out. I like the variety most.
Norman Winter has the most dangerous job. His workplace for today, the interior of the left wing. Where Norman is now crawling, there are usually more than 50,000 litres of kerosene. Once that's drained, it's ventilated for 2 days. Only then are specially trained employees like Norman allowed in. Step 1, vacuum off the last remaining kerosene. Metal on the body is strictly forbidden because of the possible sparking. There is always a danger of explosion here.
Normally, there's kerosene in here, right up to the ceiling, completely full, the whole area. The tank's divided. You can see a lot of different things in here, also measuring instruments for fuel quantity.
After cleaning, Norman checks all the instruments in the tank. To get into the back corner, he first has to unscrew some hatches. Colleagues have lost their way in this oppressive maze.
When I climb in here, I have to remember how I did it, because I've got to climb out again the other way round. It doesn't work the same way. You really have to remember it.
If Norman suddenly panics, an emergency plan would be used. His colleagues would have to cut the wing open from above. Fortunately, that is not necessary today. The most valuable individual pieces of the aircraft are its engines. There are 4 sections on the A340, each worth 10 million euros. Daniel Schumann and his colleague can only look into the depths of each engine with this so-called borescope, an illuminated miniature camera.
Look, there are more findings in the background.
The technicians have discovered serious damage and report this to the foreman. Even if 3 of the 4 engines fail, the Airbus can still land, so there was no actual danger due to the damage. This engine will still not survive the check.
It's really burnt out. There's a hole and it's blown and cracked. It's finished. The engine's got to go. That means the engine goes into the workshop, then we get a completely overhauled engine back and then install it.
4 days later, Rainer Milde gets ready for his assignment.
Now I'll strap that on, switch it on, and then slowly lift the engine up.
The engine that is now installed is already used. It has been repaired in the workshop. Now it is as good as new and ready for another 5 years in the air. The installation is precision work.
It still looks good.
But now it's time for details.
Forwards a bit, push it down.
The second-hand engine weighs over 4 tons.
Wonderful, nothing stuck. Perfectly installed.
The new drive is bolted in a few minutes. Now a lot of cables have to be connected. Airbus General Overhaul, Day 31. In the workshops, everyone is working at full speed on the last components. Only whatever can't be saved must be thrown away. Everything else is repaired. Sometimes a fresh coat of paint is enough. The cabin furniture especially often only needs minor repairs, as with these luggage compartments. The staff in the seat workshop have the tightest schedule. Every day, 20 new economy class chairs have to be finished.
Lots of different steps in no time. That's the challenge for us. We're putting in a new entertainment system. New cables, new displays, CPUs, touchscreen, everything new.
From the old seat, only the framework remains. Ultralight aluminum to save weight on board. All the wiring has to go. Only then will the new parts be put in. Each worker completes a maximum of 2 chairs per shift. The seats must be taken to the plane. These tireless robots take care of that. They automatically follow a programmed route and even avoid any obstacle with foresight. "225 economy seats have to be put back in the plane in just 2 days. At piecework rates, the workers fit seats into the floor rails.
We put them here in the holes, then they have to snap in and be clamped. And we have to do that now.
Sitting in economy class may be a tedious task for some people. Screwing the rows close together definitely is. This task is one of the least popular.
Well, it's just a lot of work. Sometimes it's not so nice when you're lying on the hard ground all day and have to fumble around in the corners.
25 men simultaneously work on the installation of the new economy seats. At the front, in business class, it's more spacious. But these seats are heavy and full of cables and wires. Airplane electrician Marijke Stankiewicz is 22 and one of the few women on the team. My job is to connect the seats electrically so that you can listen to music afterwards and watch movies. Without that, the flight would be a bit boring. The big advantage of the new business armchairs is that they can be completely folded down, almost like a small bed. On such a seat, a return trip to Los Angeles costs around €4,000. 5 weeks are over. The A340 has been completely disassembled and reassembled, with plenty of new goods on board. At the end, clean again properly. Every second is used until departure. While the jet is waiting for the engine check, the service crew is still working on the final details.
We've just got the last remaining jobs to do now. Finish off the seats, go through the work card. This carries on until the test flight. We'll be busy for a while.
Now, Kai-Uwe Hasse's parking skills are required again. The 210 feet long Airbus has to enter the engine test hangar. The tail fin sticks out at the top, a tight maneuver. In here, the engines will go full throttle. Only Michael Finger can issue the final flight clearance now. First, he looks closely at the machine. The technician then checks the hangar floor very meticulously. Objects lying around could be sucked into the sensitive turbines and damage them.
That's a prime example. That's something that shouldn't be found. Cast aluminium, and in extreme cases, it's an escalation level. There have been incidents where this has led to massive engine damage.
That was lucky. Now all 4 engines are thoroughly flushed. A high-pressure cleaning with 80 degrees hot water dissolves tiny, almost invisible soot particles. If done regularly, the jet can increase its performance by 1 to 2%, because clean engines consume less kerosene. Meanwhile, every last corner of the cabin is spotless. Everything is ready and checked. Only the most important thing is missing: the drive. Function check in the cockpit.
Brakes set checked.
Brakes in set and checked.
Wheel doors closed.
Wheel doors.
Engine inlet exhaust clear.
Engine inlet and exhausts are clear.
Every function has to be checked. Press the 2 buttons for 1 hour and note numbers.
Everything's great, readings are good. We'll now accelerate the engines 1 to 4, 35% and 60% alternately. Okay, I'm ready.
The technicians accelerate the plane up to 80% of its maximum power. In the air, this power will propel it to speeds of over 534 miles per hour. Only the brakes and the wheel chocks prevent the giant from racing against the wall. A risky maneuver.
We haven't noticed any interference. Everything looks fine. The engine runs very smoothly. Good work. Wonderful. That's how it's done.
The plane is given clearance for the perfect condition of the machine. Markel Finger will now stand for the perfect condition of the machine with his good name, until the next check in 5 years. After a short test flight, the Airbus A340 is back in service. Next stop, Sao Paulo, Beijing or Delhi.
If a plane lands here, it will never take off again. We're standing in the middle of the largest airplane scrapyard in Europe. Nothing rusty lasts forever, because among the wrecks, there are true hidden treasures.
Within 8 weeks we can have a plane, as soon as it lands, stripped right down to nothing.
Aircraft mechanic Ellis disassembles the scrap parts, while sales chief James sells them back to the airlines.
These are all to make sure that if the aircraft is needed tomorrow, it can fly tomorrow straight into service. So,
Really? It still looks like an airplane cemetery here. Cotswold Airport in the south of England is the treasure trove of the company Air Salvage International. Each year, the team disassembles 60 planes from around the world.
on average, about 92% will get reused or recycled through the parts being removed at the beginning of a process where they go back to either an airline, a broker, or an MRO.
Even used turbines end up installed in brand new holiday planes. At first, the idea might make you a bit jumpy, but we'll see in a test just how safe the scrap engines really are. Many well-known airlines trust in the work of James and his crew. Their used parts also have a clear advantage.
Yeah, so the advantage of using serviceable parts, basically this will save an airline hundreds of thousands of dollars by buying a serviceable unit rather than a brand new unit from an OEM.
One thing is clear. This is an amazing deal for the airlines. But how safe are the serviceable parts? Aircraft mechanic Ellis has years of experience in dismantling planes. He knows how to deal with the world's most expensive scrap parts. He dismantles one of the most inconspicuous but vital parts very carefully.
This will probably be to do with the communication between other aeroplanes, maybe. Try to keep all bolts with the product itself.
If the antenna fails, a collision with another plane becomes likely. Even such a vital aircraft component ends up in the junkyard. For their job, the plane dismantlers often get into dangerous situations. Ellis has to climb into this tank today. There are poisonous liquids that can easily drip into his eyes.
All the guys around here have a bottle of this extra virgin oil, which a small drop of that into your eye will release that pressure of pain straight away. It almost sort of lacquers your eye, pushes the sky jewel away from it, which takes the pain away instantly. It can be quite claustrophobic in there.
Scrap components that end up on our vacation planes. Ellis works in the most extreme conditions, such as this narrow, dark and stuffy hole.
This is the main centre tank where the fuel will be, and then you have the wing tanks either side. What I'm going to remove now is the fuel probe, which indicates the level of fuel left in the tank.
And if that doesn't work, the pilot doesn't know how much fuel he has left. Incidentally, we can also find these fuel probes in car tanks. It's a part that mustn't go missing under any circumstances.
It can be just having a bit of a think before you do anything, keep your eyes open, visual on everybody else that you're working with, and generally make sure that you've got safety precautions in place.
Ellis and his colleagues work under great pressure on several machines at the same time. There's a demand for the most varied array of parts. It's the same principle as in a normal junkyard. A 777 still needs to be completely dismantled today. It's considered one of the safest, most robust planes in the world. The consequence is that very few of them are ready for being turned into scrap.
They're the toilet tanks, not touching that. And then I come down and went to remove them, and they went everywhere, mate. And I had to go back outside, and I emptied the other two. And because he'd already claimed it, I just did them for free.
Oh.
The time has come for that 777. But how safe are serviceable parts? More on that later. First, Ellis and his team secure one of the most important parts of the aircraft, the turbine fan. Without it, any plane would overheat.
Isn't it dangerous to secure it just with a piece of wood?
Yeah. Yeah. We should have a proper gag in place to hold the TRs up. But he's going to be in there for probably 5-10 minutes and back out again.
Patch-up work on a part that keeps us all in the air.
These weigh a lot. I don't know exactly how much, but I know I wouldn't want to be holding it on my own. So the issue we've got at the moment is this lift is too big to drive in. So what we're thinking of doing is actually opening the TRs even more to see if we can bring the lift further in.
To be fair, I've never seen one break.
Ellis's plan. He pulls the iron turbine cover with his forklift, and then his colleague Sid will use a new wooden beam. The work is backbreaking. They're not experts, but handymen. Ellis is a trained landscape gardener. The engineers take care of the quality control later.
Forward. Forward. Whoa! Tread slowly. Do you know what we were saying about it never breaking? I've never seen one break. You just broke that one.
The broken strap is the smallest of their problems.
What now?
Get another strap.
And the fan?
Jesus, that went right through there.
Yeah, no, it went through here. It's where the actuator was. Because when it went back up, it was knocking on the stops. In there.
That was lucky.
You have to go slow. Out.
If the fan breaks, it costs several $1,000s.
Come back slowly.
The plan works. In contrast to other spare parts, the fan, with its weight of a whopping 176 pounds, is very hard to remove. Together, Sid and Ellis recover the last big piece of treasure in the 777. The interior of the aircraft has now been completely stripped. Doors, seats, seat belts, luggage racks, ventilation systems and lights have already been sold.
And once it's just like that, all the way through the whole plane, the machine will then start crushing.
25 years ago, this was a regular workshop for small propeller planes. Then, a large airline phoned in. Their problem? They were looking for a rare spare part. The solution? The workshop buys the whole plane and sells the 2 desired spare parts for the price of the entire aircraft. A brilliant business idea. Back in the aircraft hangar, we find something that calms our nerves. The aircraft parts are catalogued here, examined several times, and their condition is recorded in detail. Whether turbine or antenna, the same rules apply to every part. To make sure nothing goes wrong here, Sean photographs and labels everything and makes sure that no part has any cracks or dents.
In case something gets lost or they just need to check the part, that's why we take photos in case anything gets damaged. So obviously we got something we can look back on and say it wasn't damaged here, It must have been damaged elsewhere.
The plane wreckers know exactly how many hours each scrap part was in operation. The airlines test each item again before it can be installed in an active aircraft.
These will obviously have to go to shop. A lot of it can depend on the date of manufacture. This one was 2003, so it's only about sort of 15 years old, so it's still in good condition in terms of age.
Even 15-year-old emergency slides are still as good as new. Under the Aviation Act, however, they must be tested every 3 years. If they pass the tests, they can be used for decades to come.
Easily 30 to 40% may be serviceable that have gone through a shop at some point.
But not all parts may be installed in new planes.
So over here we'll have things like quarantine parts. This one is come back off, if you can see from this side, there's damage there. We've obviously advised the customer of the damage that was already on there when we took it off, and it's then their decision how they want us to proceed with it.
Nothing that could potentially break ends up in a new passenger aircraft. The crazy thing is that James can still make a profit with the discarded parts.
We supply films like Star Wars, the Doctor Who series. They come in and sometimes take parts. You know, all this stuff here is very much either expired, shelf life, or they belong off aircraft that no longer fly. So it's not going to be put back into the market to go onto other aircraft.
Each part is treated with the same care, but James separates severely broken scrap pieces from valuable spare parts. Theoretically, at least. The sales manager wants to prove that to us and takes us to a turbine test.
And then after that, just carry on with the 7-day check, and then we've got the engine runs.
Together with his most experienced engineers, James tests the engines of a scrap airliner on a new machine.
Some of the LLP parts are worth tens of thousands of pounds. The whole asset itself is worth, you know, millions of dollars. So certainly the big proportion, 89% of the value, would be within an engine.
Only the bosses themselves are allowed to work on the engines. The condition of the turbine is thoroughly inspected. Is it still working? If it is, it means a lot to James.
We're currently parked outside H1, and we're going to carry out a low power ground run on the A320, duration possibly 5 minutes.
Hydraulic pressure, hydraulic pressure, hydraulic pressure.
Will the engine start? The exhaust gas temperature is in the green range. The speed, adequate. Ventilation, perfect. The ignition system, okay. Time to start the engines. And indeed, all values are right. Now, James and his team know that millions of dollars are churning in front of them.
Perfectly safe. Yep, it's in a flight ready status. That's what these checks are for. When it's under a storage and maintenance program, we have the 7-day, 14-day, 30-day checks. So these are all to make sure that if the aircraft is needed tomorrow, it can fly tomorrow straight into service. So absolutely 100% fine to fly. Okay.
The engineers made it. The valuable heart of an old plane may now start a new life with many other used parts. Even if the second-hand parts are already millions of miles into their service life, we can rest assured that the scrap in our vacation flights is meticulously tested and is super safe.